Hi, my loves. Welcome back to the show. It's like really organized here. I was like, oh, but I actually put my phone on silent, get myself ready. I hope you are well. So, today we are going through a dark night of the soul. So, as always, you know that I will always share my stories. I'm always very open and honest about my experience because it's those teachable moments that I get to share, and hopefully just through sharing my experience, what I know about dark night of the soul is that it can help you if you are on your spiritual path, perhaps going through a dark night of the soul yourself, and just some tips and tricks, I guess, to help as much as possible during this time. So if you're kind of unfamiliar with dark night of the soul, it really does feel like it's a bit of a death. Many of my clients and it can just come out of nowhere. Some of my clients that have been through it, they're like, I just didn't see it coming. I'm like, that's the point. It can't be scheduled, unfortunately, and it will usually come at a time where there's a lot going on in life. So unfortunately, no, we don't get to schedule it. And we can also go through more than one, just so you're aware. It's not through like we just get it over and done with and we move through. But for me, I've had a few over the last few years that have maybe lasted, a few weeks, a short period of time. But last year, really pretty much the whole entire year, I was in dark night of the soul. And, it was, I could feel that it was a slow building. At the time, I was still going through part of my Kundalini awakening. I won't get into that today. We'll leave that for another episode. But a lot of us it's not just one thing. Okay. This is part of your spiritual awakening process, but you may be going through other parts of your awakening at the same time. You may be having a whole Kundalini awakening at the same time as your spiritual awakening. You may be having a lot of ascension symptoms all coming up. So we're kind of in this real vortex of this time right now where we're purging collective stuff. We're purging everything. So everyone's experience will be very, very different, and to what degree, because it's, kind of think of it like a little bit of an ego death, right? So while the ego is not really dying off, what's happening is that we're starting to shed the layers. Okay. So we're here on planet Earth. We all have some conditioning. We all have programs. We all have an ego. We all have our subconscious thoughts going on. Most of the time, that's what's controlling the way that we live. Okay, so think about it from the soul perspective, is that when we incarnated here, we had our whole life kind of all planned out. We had exit points in place. We were like, yep, this is the mission. This is the soul contracts that I'm going to do. We map everything out. Okay. Also part of our spiritual development is all mapped out too. So for me, obviously, my awakening was, later in life. And so I chose this very accelerated path. And part of the dark night of the soul is that accelerated path. And really what it is here to do is it's really here just to really, we see it as this terrible time of darkness and depression and, all these things. But really what it is it's a period of healing. It's a period of us being able to let go of what doesn't serve us, what's not working in life, but we fight and we resist it because it's all we've ever known. So, like for me, there's always been so much lack and scarcity, and it's the way I've grown up, and, very hardworking family, like very blue collar, so it's like even like letting go of money beliefs, letting go of how I viewed the world. I had so much fear, so much anxiety, but yet here to step into this work, 12 months ago, You know, if someone had said, oh, you'll just start a podcast and, you know, just out of thin air, you know, and actually start talking, like I still had so many fears around that. I still had all this witch wounding, even though I'd been moving through stuff for years, it was still all there under the surface. So it is really like, I want to say it's a beautiful time, but it's not. It's a shit time. It's very uncomfortable. But when you're coming out the other side, like when you really feel that you've come out the other side, you know, you can take that breath and you can start to have gratitude for what it is. And I'm only saying this because I only really feel like I'm really, really stepping out of it, like in the last few weeks, you know. And so it's starting to just have that retrospective, like of what I've actually gone through and just how different I feel. I think because this one was so long, you know, you kind of go, oh yeah, that's right, like, oh yeah, I have changed and evolved a lot. So that's kind of what a dark night of the soul is that it kind of feels like this death period, and essentially what it's doing is just shedding the ego, it's shedding everything out. So let's get into some of the, I guess, common traits that you may experience so that you can start to know if you're in it. So I guess the biggest indication of dark night of the soul, because it's not like you get a knock on the door to go, oh, okay, just so you know you're about to go through it. You just, for me, you know, I just woke up and it was like, okay, like it's here. Other people, you know, there can be a traumatic experience of, you know, maybe someone passing away, something like that, that brings it on. I guess for me, the biggest thing is that it felt like depression. And obviously for me, going through depression, through my, you know, through life, and, you know, really being in that place where I was really not wanting to be here, it feels like it's very scary to go back into that place. So it feels like that really deep depression. And I think that's what a lot of my clients that have also gone through dark night of the soul is, that we know that feeling of being in that black hole and like there is no way out. So I think this is part of why we resist and we fight it and try to scratch our way and every single step, because we also know what that place is like and what a struggle it is. And I think also too, you know, for a lot of us, when we really start our inner healing and our spiritual journey, like we're finding like, oh yeah, like I'm starting to feel amazing, like this is great. And that's usually when the dark night of the soul comes. And then we're like, what have I done wrong? We go into blaming ourselves that we've somehow brought it on. We don't see it as a good thing. And then we're so scared that it will never end. And I know last year, because it was so long and so intense, this one, I was just like, I think this is it. I think this is where I'm going to stay. Like, you know, and not saying like there was, you know, moments of joy and some good things, but, you know, it was a very long period of time. And this can be also the case. You know, people go through it for sometimes months or even years. So some of the main signs, I guess, that you'll really see is that really that feeling depressed, but it's, and if you've had the experience that that's usually what I find for people, is it's like that resistance of like, oh God, like I am back here in this place again. And it's like we go into that contraction. Okay. So when we're, you know, like we're either in contraction or expanding. Okay. So we're going like this in our levels of consciousness and what we're doing. And because we're fighting, you know, we want to kind of keep our job. We want to keep things going. You know, last year I was like trying to go through this and still keep seeing clients, keep teaching, doing events. I was doing all these things to try, and because I was like, I have a business to run, like, and my schedule is that like this is a year of growth for us. Like, no, the last few years have been terrible. We're just over COVID. Like, no, 2023 was supposed to be my comeback year. Like, no, I don't have this on my schedule. I'm not doing this. So I was fighting it and trying to keep afloat of everything, like in my personal life, but also like in my business life. And it was just all trying to stop. And I just was like, no, no, no. I was trying to keep all the balls in the air. And like, I was like, no, 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 I want to be in expansion. I want to be expanding everything right now. And so it was this, like, it just like this, it felt like this black mist that just kind of was coming in. And it was like, I had nowhere to go but to be in it. So I had to really go back to the basics, go back to my nervous system, because everything felt like it was falling away. Friends that I really thought that were going to be part of my life forever, like, you know, my health coaching friends, spiritual friends, they were dropping off as well. So I felt so alone through it. And it just felt like I was back in that place of just desperation, depression. And I was just like, what is going on? Before I really started to realize and go, okay, this is dark night of the soul. So then I was like, okay, let's hurry up, let's get through this, because I don't want to be in this, it's uncomfortable. And so I kind of prolonged it, because I didn't want to surrender into it. I didn't want to accept that it was there. So take it from me, that's the worst thing that you can do through this time. But you know, it also, towards the end of last year, you know, as I was starting to come out of it and I'd kind of shifted and evolved, like, you know, it also, you know, put such a wedge in my relationship with my parents. Like, we're now no longer speaking at all. So I guess this is a thing that a lot of people don't talk about, of like, you know, kind of like when we go through this period, like, it is destructive. It is like, because it's pushing everything out that's just not part of like what you're here to do. It's not like, it's not aligned anymore. So it's normal that people from your life, you know, will drop out, you know, relationships end, people, like, you know, sometimes have to quit their job because they just need to be in bed. You know, sometimes it's just like, I can't even hold a job down. Like, you know, I was lucky that you know, I kind of ended, I had my cleaning business, and I'd finally just started to let that go. And it was kind of at that time, because for the last couple of years, you know, I was down to just doing 2 days a week, and I was like, oh, I just really want to let this go. I just can't hold on to this anymore. It feels like it's sucking my soul. And I finally was like, okay, I'm letting this go. I'm stepping all the way in. I'm trying to record Reiki trainings and do all these things. I don't have time to do 2 days of work. I need to put that into the business for the growth. And that was kind of the pivotal moment when Dark Night of the Soul came. So I felt really liberated in that moment of like, yes, I'm fully owning it. I'm stepping in all the way. I'm going full time in my business. This is going to be amazing. And pretty much, I think within like a week or two, that depression came in, and I started to freak out. Like, I was like, oh my God. So everything that I was trying to grip and hang on to, and particularly, you know, my business, like it's my baby. It's what I've been working for the last few years, you know, like this is like the thing that makes me feel like me the most, like it feels the most in alignment with me. And so when that was trying to fall away, I was like, like this is the one thing that's mine. I'm not letting it go. So there was a lot going on through the year. So life can feel really meaningless. And so if you've kind of gone, like, you know, if you've been spiritual, you know, perhaps you're a healer or a practitioner and you're going through Dark Night of the Soul, is that it can feel like, what was the point? And I was definitely in that. I was just like, you know, it would be like kind of when I started doing like my Reiki master level, like, you know, I had some sessions and it was coming through from my guides that, you know, what my mission was here, what my purpose was, you know, that collective mission. You know, you're here to raise the vibration of women, you're here to make a difference. You know, I obviously didn't quite know what ascension was at that point, but I was like, whoa, okay, like this is big, like the information that I was getting. So to be given that and to go and, you know, over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, invest so much time and energy, money, resources into not only healing myself, but to build the foundations of my business so that I can serve in the way that I do. For it to last year, when my Akashic record business guides were like, no, you need to just stop and you'll come back in 2025 and start a new business, pretty much the same. And I was just like, F this shit. No possible way. And it was because I was going through this dark night of the soul. They're like, this needs to be about you. This needs to be about your healing time. Then you can come back and serve. But I was not having any, I was like, no, I haven't worked this hard to get here to just stop. And I really was like in this place of like, F you, universe, because you've given me this purpose. You've sent me down this path. I've followed the breadcrumbs in a very nice way that I'm telling you, because this will be on YouTube and I don't want to swear too much, but you can just imagine the conversation coming from me. So I was yelling at my guides. I was yelling at the universe. I was like, this is shit. Like, I am not going to put up with this. So it just felt meaningless. I was like, well, what has been the purpose? Like, you've made me go and do all of this, what, just to heal myself? Like, I'm not here, you know, why have you told me all this? So it just felt so meaningless last year. But I was like, but at the same time, I was like trying to hold out, I guess, hope. I was like, no, I think I want to try and believe that, you know, like there's more here, like that I haven't missed the mark, like there's got to be something. But it was this very much back and forth, like daily, and you know, like, you know, do all the work to kind of make myself feel as functional and normal as I could. But then, you know, that the ego would come up and then I would get really riled up again. So it was a real back and forth about like, this is meaningless. What's the point? There was a lot of talk, not to the level of the depression I was in where I actually wanted to take my life. But last year I was just like, I can't be here, you know, and particularly if you're a starseed, like you have that feeling of missing home. I was like that. I was just like, this planet, we're not going to ascend like this. Like, look at the people, you know, like we're so far off. I'm just like, I can't stay here. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be part of the Ascension ground crew anymore. Like, that's it. I bought mission. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is too hard. I was really in that place of like, this is too hard. My soul's tired. It's old. It's done this so many times, but I'm like, I'm done. I just don't want to be here. I just want to go home. Just want to go back to Andromeda. Just want to be in the light, in those higher frequencies. Like, it just felt so dense. And it's usually then the time that we really go into deep purging. So kind of, I guess, really kind of from, I guess, 4 years ago, I've been kind of used to the purging. It kind of really started with, I guess, Reiki, that like every month, like I was, you know, having my period and I'd get a migraine and my body was purging through that time. It's kind of the time when my body's just like, okay, everything out. Let it all go every month. And it was kind of like a real ritual of just like every month things would be coming up. So I'd be vomiting, you know, crying, bleeding, everything would want to purge out of me. So I was kind of used to it. And then it kind of stopped. So I was like, oh, okay, like things are great. But last year, going through the big kind of chunk of dark night of the soul, that there was a lot of purging of the emotions, a lot of the purging the physical body. So for me, that's usually through having to vomit and get things out through my throat. So there's a lot of purging that happens, you know, and the body, but you know, you may also like need to purge your house, you know, if you've got a lot of stuff that you're hanging on to that's been in your house for a long time, you may need to purge the house. it's purging the emotions, but it's also purging like all the mental stuff too, you know, so all the programs, all the thoughts. So there'd be days that I would be like just, you know, kind of for me, like if I'm getting a really bad headache or migraine, it's enough for me to kind of cancel my day. Like I can't see clients if I'm like that, because I have a lot of, it's not just the pressure, but it's kind of like this banging behind my eyes. So I can't really function all that well. So those days I'd just be in bed and I'd be like back and forth vomiting and almost like rolling around in the bed, you know, tossing and turning, because I was so uncomfortable, with what was coming up. And then I just would have to just, you know, or I'd feel so nauseous for hours, and then I'd have to really coach myself through and be like, okay, I give this permission to be here. It's trying to tell me something. You know, if I just let it be here and accept it instead of trying to push it away, then it will come up when it's ready. And so then I had to really get into this every month of like, okay, I let you be here. I know you're trying to help me right now. I know this is trying to come out. And then I'd have to then go, I accept that you're here. Whatever you need to tell me, whatever you're here to teach me, whatever I need to learn right now, let that be here. But then I also give you permission to leave now. So it was kind of like I was transmuting a lot of this energy. You know, sometimes it would feel like this really deep, like kind of coming up through my voice and from the belly, you know, it almost like it felt so primal, you know, like, and dark, the stuff that was coming up. So it was almost like I was purging thousands of years of stuff. And, you know, and particularly being an empath, like I was also purging everyone else's shit that I'd been picked up for 40 years. Like that was also coming out. Like, so it wasn't just my stuff, it was the ancestral stuff, it was the past life stuff, it was the collective stuff. And this is what we kind of don't realize of how deep it goes, because we're like, oh my God, like how can there be anything left? But we're clearing layer and layer and layer. It's usually a time that we'll also really connect into our inner child again. So it's important that if we need to go back and do any work. So I was like, you know, I was lucky that I'd started doing some sessions with Susie, who's my Akashic record teacher. She was just doing some coaching calls with me, which was lucky that I had that during this time, because I really needed it. And we had to go back and do some inner child stuff. And I was like, I've done inner child stuff. I've done it, like, I've done it to death. And she's like, no, you've got more layers there, Kirsty. You need to go back in. So I had to really go back in, do more inner child stuff. I had to come back and do more teenage stuff as well, and really go into deeper layers. And, you know, kind of through this last 5 years of really, you know, inner healing, the one thing that I never really focused on was the nervous system. So because of this really big dark night of the soul, I really had to start to address the nervous system. And that kind of really helped then, you know, for the ego to finally let go of control. So if you're going through this, the biggest thing I can recommend is nervous system regulation. Anything you can do to regulate the nervous system. And just giving yourself permission. So even if you've done a lot of healing, you know, it's all coming up. It's like, okay, we've got to go deeper. There's still some stuff here. You might also notice a lot more synchronicities. So I could tell you pretty much every day I would see, you know, I'd be just doing stuff and I'd be like, oh, what time is it? I can guarantee you it would be 10:10, 11:11, 12:12. I would see every single day on the clock and just be like, you know, and 4:44, 5:55, all of those things. It was just a constant. But the thing that did happen, so I was getting all those synchronicities. So I knew that my guides, my angels were there. But what had happened, because I obviously, with the work that I do, the healing and you know, I've been developing this over the years, is like I do have a really strong connection to my guides. And because I hear my guides, I feel them, I don't really visualize, I don't see them much, but I can just feel their energy. I can, I'm like, oh, okay, Kuan Yin's with me. Each one of them feels different to me. So I know who's coming in, or I just have kind of the gut knowing, but I can usually hear a confirmation as well from them. That all completely went. Okay, so anytime we're going through dark night of the soul, expect that your team, your guides really drop back as well, and you might not be having as much time with them. I was lucky that because I was studying the Akashic records, because obviously through Reiki it was very intuitive, and that's how I was connecting to my guides. But with Reiki, with the Akashic records, saying the prayer, it helped me to connect to the Akashic guides. So I was still able to have some connection, but all of my other guides pretty much dropped back. And that's a normal, kind of like when we're going through something really big, of like, if we need them, you ask and they'll come in, but a lot of the times they'll stand back and just support, and kind of like, because they can't do it for us. They can only give us the support. They can only, give us a nice big warm hug and say, it's okay, like everything's going to be okay. So sometimes they'll step back to really let you be in it, because they know the strength that you have to push through. But a lot of the times, yeah, your guides will really drop out, and you just feel then so disconnected from the universe as well. So when you're going through this, you're just like, no one's here, I'm all alone. We very much drop into the victim state, if that ego, because it's trying to, essentially the ego is shedding, right? But it does not want a part of that, because the ego thrives on control. It's been in control for most of our lives. It's got all the programs. It knows, hey, we were made fun of at school when we had to go and stand in front of class and speak. So, hey, we're never going to do that again. So we never experience that again. So it's got all these systems in place that are kind of designed to keep us safe. But it's when the ego kind of gets to the stage where it's running our life, instead of just being in the back seat and there if we need it, that's when we've got to do the shedding work. So this is kind of like, the ego will just go out of control and loop in the most ridiculous thoughts. Last year going through it, I was like, I was kind of like spiraling out of control, because I'd given up the last of my stable income to come fully into my business full time. And then everything just dropped. Clients were canceling, Reiki trainings had to be cancelled, we had to cancel events, like it was just all going, and I was just like freaking out. And my ego was like, there was stories about like, you're going to be homeless, you're not going to be able to pay any bills, you're not going to be able to buy food. Like it just would go around and around and around in these just looping thoughts. And there was, my husband works. I was like, okay, we will get by, by the skin of our teeth, but we will get by. But there was just this constant ridiculous thoughts, because the ego was like, holy shit, she's gonna like break through this, she's gonna end this, and she's gonna do this quantum leap, and all these amazing things are gonna happen, and we've never had that in life. So she freaks out, because she's like, I've never experienced having amazing things in my life, so why would I welcome that in? So these are all the things that we're trying to shed through this time. So of course you'll usually go through, obviously, that really feeling like that depression, feeling very unhappy with everything in your life, like, and because you're in that, you just feel that very negative. It's like everything triggers you, because you're already feeling off, you already don't want to be in this, but you feel stuck and you feel hopeless, you feel all of those things, are feeling really lost, just like you're just trying to get through the day, just like, I just need to get through another day, another day, another day. But also you'll start to then kind of get into the stage where you're like, okay, I need to come back and incorporate healthy habits again, like it's almost like, I think particularly like, I want to say particularly for women, but I think when we're used to kind of being the nurturer, the support for everyone else, is that we've learnt and allowed ourselves to kind of be last. When you go through dark night of the soul, you actually don't have any energy. You don't have, like, you can't give as much as you've given in the past. This can sometimes be what causes people to walk away. But it's kind of, then you have to kind of go back to that framework, like I said, like the nervous system, and it's then going back to, okay, what do I need to do to just look after me? So for me, it was like, well, I know if I go to the forest and I go for a walk every day, that at least makes me feel better. Being in nature helps to transmute that negative energy. If I just do that, at least that's one thing I've done for the day for me, and that I know is going to give me, the help that I need. I'd be in there tapping most days on my chest, walking through, and people going, "What is she doing?" But I'd be just like, I just, I've just got to walk, and I've just got to tap, and I've just got to breathe, and everything's going to be okay. So it's getting into more healthy habits, and then kind of just keep building on one and one after the other. It's also the time where some people will get in touch with their spiritual side. So obviously, if people have gone through, dark night of the soul, perhaps not really gone through like their real spiritual journey, it can allow them to really start to explore that. I think back to, before kind of all this started, and there were some dark nights of the souls, even like 10 years ago, and probably what really led to my depression, and probably if I really look back, it would probably be a dark night of the soul period that I was in, because it was when I was like, I have to find, my son was, kind of in school. I was like, okay, this has to be a time that I need to explore what I want to do with my life as well. He doesn't need that full on attention. What is for me? Because just being a mum and a wife isn't enough. Like, what do I actually want to do? So it can be a time that we start to incorporate more of our spiritual side. It's also a time that we really start to remember. So there can be, if you're doing like a lot of meditation, or you're just sleeping a lot or resting a lot, that you can start to have a lot of remembrance come back online. So whether that's from your past lives, perhaps it might be some of your off-earth lifetimes that like you're seeing, you're visualizing, you're in these meditations, and all these weird things are happening. That can be part of our remembrance coming back in. And like I said, you will feel really, really abandoned by the universe. It's like, and that really like angry. Like, I was so angry last year at the universe for this. I had to really be in that, and especially because I was going through it, I was still obviously seeing clients. My guides would always turn up and help my clients, but I was like, why are you not helping me? Why are you not helping me? This, we're helping everyone else. Why are you not helping me? But I had to just be in this period. Okay, I'm just reading my notes, making sure I've got everything. So it's important just to remember that even though, I've talked a lot about how uncomfortable it is also necessary. It is this healing that if we just allow it, if we just let it be here, because really, there's nothing else you can do. Every time I tried to fight it, didn't go away, kept coming back stronger and stronger. So some tips of like what to do when you're in it, because like I said, we don't schedule it. We don't really get a say. Our higher self and our soul have really chosen to go through this. So number one, I guess, is about this acceptance, because even if we just take a step back and go, okay, my soul has chosen to have this experience. I must be going to learn something through it. If I actually just accept that this is an opportunity to let go of what doesn't serve me, so perhaps, you know, you're a people pleaser, perhaps you don't have boundaries, like, it's going to allow those people, you know, that have been taking advantage of you for years to drop off. You know, it's this opportunity of allowing. So if I just accept it, it will move through. And I wish I had accepted it more, because I think it would have been a quicker process than 12 months if I'd actually accepted it. So sometimes when we're just holding on, you know, your soul, the universe, they don't care how long you sit in it. They're like, oh, this is what you want to do with this lifetime. Like, we can go a lifetime, you know, because from that soul perspective, you know, like when we're looking from the Akashic records, like, this is what we are here to do. We're here to learn all these lessons. We're here to fulfill our purpose and our mission, whatever that looks like for us. So they don't really care, because time's not linear. It's not how we perceive it here. So they're like, well, you can take as long as you want. Like, there's plenty of other lessons here that you've also signed up for that we could move on to. But if you want to stay in this, okay, Kirsty, we'll stay in it for as long as you like. So the best advice I can give you is to just accept it and go, okay, I'm going to let it be here. I'm going to let my body release whatever it needs to. I'm going to let go of the emotions. I'm going to let go of all the conditioning, all the thoughts. Just let it go. And, you know, when we can really be in that place, we also then be able to see the perception of, like, wow, like, if I'm letting go of all this stuff, there must be something really amazing waiting for me on the other side, because why would I let go of this? Like, what version of me am I stepping up into? You know, and as we have all these timelines collapsing and we're just starting to get closer to our highest timeline, this is really this opportunity of just like, oh, I'm shedding all of this stuff. I'm shedding all those fears, all those worries, all those things that have been keeping me small. They're all being released right now. And the other thing is really about having trust. And that's really hard, you know, because it's hard to trust something that you don't know how long it's going to be there for. It's hard to trust that it's all going to work out. It's hard when you're in it, because one, the ego's going crazy, trying to keep control, keep everything in order. It's hard when things are falling away to go, well, what about if this keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and I get into such a hole that I can't get out of? It can be a really scary feeling. So that trust, it's not easy. You can see from my experience, I didn't accept, I didn't really trust. I fought and resisted because I didn't know. And I say to my guides now, I'm like, if you just told me, like, hey, like, you're going to go through this, but you're going to be okay, and you're going to come out the other side better, more you, more whole, more light, more of your authentic self, you know, I could have at least handled that a bit. And they're like, come on, you would have still fought and resist. You would have tried to hurry the process. So just having that trust as much as you can that everything's going to work out, everything's okay, taking it moment by moment. Self-care is really important during this time. So really honoring what your body needs. Obviously, rest is really important as well. You know, I don't think I could go back to, I guess, like, you know, a third dimensional job. I don't know how people who are spiritual even are able to do a 9-to-5 job, because I was like, I can barely like drive the car, I can barely go to the shops, I can barely function like a human being anymore, it feels like, most days. So I was like, you know, and the amount of rest and what I needed last year, like, there was no way I could have been, especially cleaning houses, you know, and the business that I had, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Like, it was just such a physical job. And lots of self-love and compassion. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why I always sneeze when I'm doing these podcasts. So just, yeah, really just giving yourself as much grace as you possibly can, of just like, okay, whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm experiencing today, I'm just going to love myself through it. If you're having all that, hate, all that ego, there was times, when Sally, what I named my ego, there was times last year where she was like, you should have just killed yourself and we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be going through this. I'm like, ouch, like that one hurt. So just giving like a lot of love and compassion and grace for yourself, because you might not be able to stay on top of everything that you did before. There was like piles of washing. I didn't, and particularly coming from a perfectionist and a cleaner, and having all these standards of how I had our own home, I couldn't even keep up with that stuff. Some days I would be in my pajamas all day. Some days, it's just giving yourself the love and compassion. Sometimes I'd spend hours in the bath or the shower. It's just love yourself as much as you can through this period, and find the moments of joy. Like I said, yes, it's this really hard time, uncomfortable time, and yes, it feels like meaningless a lot of the time, and just like, oh, like, when is, like, I just want this to be over. But we can still tap into moments of joy. We can go for a walk and go, oh wow, like there is so much beauty here in the forest, or a moment of dancing and moving your body and connecting to that inner child. All things are coming up. Or going and spending time with friends and family if you feel up to it. It might not be like a really big chunk of time, it might be something really small, like, or just a moment of laughing with your family. Like, any moments that you can get of joy are going to be really memorable, and you'll treasure them like through that journey. And so the other thing, obviously I want to talk about is then, of course, what happens on the other side. So as I've said, there's no time limit. Some people, may go through a dark night of the soul. It's a day, a few days, a few weeks, a few months, years. Everyone's really different. Perhaps your soul just went, look, I'm going to do just one big block and get it over and done with. Or perhaps, your soul chose, look, I'll do smaller chunks. It's whatever you've kind of assigned to. But what happens when you come out of the other side is that you kind of have that feeling like of real inner peace, but it's coming from inside. So obviously through last year, we were going through ascension, we were having like all this light come in, like, there would be days that, yeah, I could feel all of the light streaming in and, obviously access it, but it was coming down in, it wasn't from within. And now coming out the other side, coming back into expansion, I feel that from within me now. The other thing is that, obviously my ego, Sally is finally in the back seat. Sally is, yes, she comes up. Yes, she has some things to say sometimes. But the thing is, I really don't feel that her constant bit in my ear like she was. I also don't feel the fear or feeling scared to step into new things like I was. That feels like it's gone, and it feels like it's finally like I want to say forever thing. Like, that's how deep I went into last year. And, it was kind of came up in a lot of healing sessions I did with some of my friends and other practitioners, that, I was kind of like moving up this staircase, walking up. And it's like, getting to this point of expansion, but like it was almost like there was gum on my shoe and kept trying to pull me back down, because I had to keep staying there, kind of really do the deep work and deep cleanse at each step, so I don't have to go back. So now it feels like I'm feeling like, ooh, like shooting off this up the staircase like a rocket, that gum's gone. So that's, I guess, the thing that feels different for me is like those things that had still been there. Yes, over the years that eased and not been there, but would still come up a lot. That's definitely to like a very bare minimal now. And the other thing is that you really can come into a deeper sense of your purpose. And I know that's, for me, as well, stepping into more or different aspects of my business at the moment, like, is really where I'm focusing and where I'm being called to go. So it's like my purpose. So even though, I was told years ago, like, your purpose is to raise the vibration of, the people, women, the planet, like, it's like getting deeper now, and it's like this new calling coming through. So it will take us into deeper levels of our purpose. You obviously always, you feel a lot more like emotionally regulated as well, and that emotional healings like really really worked, and you just feel lighter within. Like, it's not that the heaviness that you're holding on to of all the emotions. We obviously feel a lot more joyful and a lot more happiness in our life. You'll start to notice that the relationships that you have in life start to really improve, because you're able to be more in your authenticity. And it's, I guess for me, kind of like, it did help me to activate and access more of my voice, and coming from that people pleaser, codependencies, poor boundaries, like, yeah, these are things that I've been working on. I still don't want to hurt people's feelings. So even if I didn't agree with things, or sometimes, just to avoid an argument, I just wouldn't say things, and now I'm just like, I can't do that. So it's really helped me step into this authenticity, but to have, I guess, more nourishing conversations and more nourishing relationships. It's like, okay, a lot of people, left my life, but the ones that are here actually really mean something to me. I don't feel obligated, like, and it's mutual. It's not just me giving all the time like it was before. And there's also much more of that emotional resilience, because like, you've done all the work in your nervous system, that ego's dropped off, that you do feel more resilient. So before, any little thing, I'd be like, oh, like, like a hot mess, like, oh my god, the world is ending because something hasn't gone my way, this hasn't worked. And I just don't feel, I feel like I'm much stronger within now. And of course, there's a lot more insight, a lot more can open up. There's a lot more understanding, kind of through this. Like, I guess, because I was doing my Akashic stuff and I knew it was a starseed, but I really went in deep exploring kind of who I was at soul level. I went back through my records and really started to look at, past lives and off-earth lifetimes of like how that all influenced me. So I was really starting to get more of an insight of who I was at my core level, not who I was, this programmed version, this one that, just came in here, and was trying to please everyone and be liked by everyone. Like, I really discovered who I was at soul level. And the other thing that really happens is that you start to, like I said before, is you have so much more gratitude. And it's not just the, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. Like, you can see all around you, like, just how grateful, like, for everything. And there's mornings when I sit outside on the deck and I have my morning coffee and I'm doing my gratitude practice, and I'm just like, looking at the trees, looking at the birds, and like I'm brought to tears like with this gratitude. So yeah, it's like it is an up leveling. It's an uncomfortable, but hey, you know, that is growth and expansion. So I wanted to just really just go through, I guess, the motions of what I've experienced. You know, everyone's experience, like I said, is going to be different every time. It's all going to be a different time period for everyone, but just to bring awareness that it's a normal part of the spiritual awakening process. It's a normal part of this ascension that we're going through. Like everyone will feel it, you know. It may not be a year for you, it may not be as drastic for you, you know. You might not have as much past life stagnation, or you might not taken on as many ancestral wounds. You know, it can be different for everyone, and it depends on the background. It depends on a lot of factors. So I hope today's episode has just brought a lot of awareness. And I think, you know, it's also like part of like, I guess for me is like also never like, you know, with mental health or whether we're going through an awakening, is just to try and give everyone love and gratitude, because we actually don't know what everyone's going through. You know, people are struggling. So just trying to have love and compassion for everyone, because realistically, how do we know what they're going through at the end of the day? So I would love to hear from you guys what you thought of this episode. Have you been through a dark night of the soul? I would love to hear your experience. So feel free to obviously drop us a comment here on YouTube. And I am very excited to announce that the podcast is now available on Spotify and iTunes as well. So if you're listening there, thank you very much. We would love it if you can subscribe and also give us a review. So sending you so much love for the week ahead. And I will see you in the very next episode. Bye for now.